What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandell. I'm coming to you guys live today from sunny Delray Beach, Florida. I got a really special treat for you all. He's handsome. He's smart. I mean, every which way, this guy is a stud. He is living the life that so many of us we just dream about. And this is a guy, he's living the life that we all would love to have because he's extremely prepared. He's plugged in and he knows that he measures risk, but he gets in the game. He doesn't sit on the sideline. He understands that life is not a spectator sport. Randy Kaplan, it's so great to have you here on the show. Thank you.
Ross, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I mean, you really are a spectacular guy, I just want to say. And, I'm known for praising my guests, but if you're on my show, that means you're pretty special. And I know that you also have a podcast. And
I do. It's called...
Go ahead, say it. I'm sorry.
I have an amazing podcast called In Search of Excellence, where I interview some of the most successful people in the world, people such as Tony Robbins, Dana White, Gary Vee, Mike Tyson. And my goal is to inspire and motivate people to achieve their dreams.
I love that. And so my goal is one day to be invited on your podcast. Then I'll know I have stepped, into the arena with the true greats, the gladiators of our time. So, one of the things I like to do is dial the clock back, Randy. I like people to know you weren't always this guy. You weren't always a founder of companies that are worth $10 billion to trade on NASDAQ, et cetera. At one time, you were just a young man. We'd like to know where you're from, where you grew up, what early life was like, family, school, et cetera.
Yeah. First, again, thanks for having me. I grew up in a suburb of Detroit. My parents divorced when I was very, very young, and I split time between my mom and my dad. And from the age of 2, I started stuttering. And stuttered really through high school and even part of college, and was bullied as a kid. And
Wow.
It was very rough. You come home from school crying every day and telling your mom and your grandmother, I don't want to go back. And so that was a real struggle for me. I spent a lot of time alone, didn't have a lot of friends, definitely wasn't outgoing and didn't have the same personality that I have today. And I was always a good student. Starting in 6th grade, I remember was the first time they actually had grades, and we had a printout on a dot matrix printer. People don't even know what that is today. And I remember looking down and seeing all A's. And I thought, God, that's pretty special. I knew I was doing well, but I didn't expect that. And ultimately, I thought that grades and great grades were my ticket to success and opportunities. I think education is the most important investment we can make in ourselves. And there's nothing more important. So throughout school and high school, I studied a lot, more than anybody else. At least, well, maybe not more than, but certainly I had a great work ethic, and I graduated high school, top of my class, graduated University of Michigan, top 1% of my class. And
Great school.
Went to Go Blue, and then I went to Northwestern Law School, and I did okay there, graduated with
Another great school.
Honors as well.
Wow. You really, you knocked me for a loop over there, because like most people, I look at the shiny stuff. I look at your Instagram. I look at your family. I looked at all these beautiful posts. I listen to some of your podcasts, and you're just great. You're a great interview. You have a great personality. Shocked to hear that story. And I think it's a great thing for people to know. God put, I don't know if you believe in God, and some people don't like this term, but I believe, and I think that you were challenged greatly, and it was tough.
Very tough.
Divorce.
Very traumatic when everyone's making fun of you and calling you Randy and retarded and stupid.
Oh my God,
that does something to your internal psyche, and it isn't good for you, that's for sure. But ultimately, I stayed the course. I went to speech therapy, and I practiced a lot. Thousands of hours of practice with a speech therapist. I'd read aloud every night. I had homework assignments. I couldn't get on the phone, so I'd have these homework assignments where I would call stores, ask for certain things. But before that, I couldn't order in restaurants, and it was very, very hard to make phone calls. I couldn't ask girls out on a date. It was embarrassing. But over time, through a lot of hard work, I taught myself a new way to speak, and it's been great since then.
It's just so shocking, bro. I'm just going to tell you, guy. How old a guy are you?
I'll be 57 in a month.
You look good, huh? What the? And how
Oh,
tall? How
thank you.
tall are you? You're tall, right?
6'2.5".
And were you always tall, like when you were in school and all that, when you were a kid?
No, I think I grew a lot in high school. I was a very thin kid. I was not an athlete. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. We had good sports teams. I went to a private school, and our sports teams were great. And I just never had the confidence to do well. I wasn't a great athlete. Today, I'm a much better athlete than I was back then. And a lot of it has to do with confidence. I think confidence is very, very important in everything that we do, and sometimes we don't have it. And often we have to dig deep and find out how we get it.
I love that because it's. I teach people. I have a mastermind, and I teach a lot of younger men and men even your age, my age. Even I got a guy in his 60s, and I talk about confidence, and I teach my kids confidence. And a lot of times, my daughters come back to me and says, "Dad, I did this, I did that." She goes, "I'm so confident now," and I'm like, I'm beaming inside. There's a word in Yiddish like kvelling. It's like glowing from within. Like light comes out of you. See somebody when they're kvelling, the light's coming out of them because they're feeling so blessed and. There's nothing more fulfilling. I'm a daughter dad. It's a very special thing. I have two beautiful daughters, and lo and behold, I see you also have daughters. Tell us about that. I mean, that's a whole nother trip.
Yes, I have. Well, I have 5 kids. I have one son. He's 21 years old. He's a stud, and he's graduating college in May. Amazing personality, great with people, hard worker, has the entrepreneurial gene. So very proud of him. Very proud of all my kids. I have 23-year-old twin girls.
My
One lives in
God.
Chicago, works for a talent agency. One lives in Chicago and works for a large construction company. And then I have a 9-year-old who's in 3rd grade, and I have a 5-year-old in kindergarten. So they're spread out. But there's nothing more important than family. There's nothing more important than spending time with your kids. At the end of the day, all we have is our family, and family first. Love my family more than anything. I also have an amazing wife named Madison. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. The day I met her was the day I changed my life, and couldn't be more grateful for her.
It's I've seen pictures, that you post on Instagram, etc. And I was kvelling for you when I saw that your wife and the two beautiful girls. And you're doing sports together, and you're at different parts of the world, and you're just living you're living the life. That was my life, just so you know. And I was a guy with the ultimate amount of confidence throughout my life. And I was short. The reason I asked you about your height when you were young, I was 4'11" till I was 13, and that also was not great for your confidence. I was a good athlete, but it was really very rough, being short. And I saw pictures of you and your wife, and she looks like she's a giant. She looks like she's so thin and tall, like a model. They were runway
Well,
type.
she was a model.
Well,
She was so interesting that a lot of people have beauty on the outside and are very, very lucky. But my wife is more beautiful on the inside than she
amen,
is on the outside. And
amen,
that's,
bro. My too. My ex-wife, who arranged this podcast, we're still best friends, and we're starting up a Raw Media, which is a content creation company, and it's something we'll get to later on because I know you're a very smart investor and a founder. You get stock at par value and options, and you create boards and all these good things that I'm from that business. I was registered at E.F. Hutton in 1983, one of the top brokers in the entire country for many, many years. And you don't know this, but I'm the first American to bring a regulated American business public on the London Stock Exchange. And I did it twice before anybody else did it once. The second time I raised $1 billion and created a fund and bought 9 companies. And I had a number 1 performing stock in all of Europe for like 4 years. But that's another story for another time. Today is your day, Randy, and I'm just so psyched to have you here. Okay, so you go to law school, right? Northwestern, right? Great school, yes. Michigan. But today you're sitting where? When you're not in Detroit anymore.
I'm in Los Angeles, but let's go back for a minute to law school.
Please.
Because I want to go to business school. So I had a business in college. I sold T-shirts. I went door to door. I hit every single dorm room. I had every single dorm room in every single dorm. I would get kicked out of one hall. I'd go into the other hall, and eventually, I sold a lot of T-shirts. It was great. It was cash money. But one of the most important lessons I learned knocking on doors, trying to sell T-shirts to college kids, was the art of cold calling, which is one of the most important skills we can have. You knock on a bunch of doors, you get your door slammed in your face, you got people saying rude things. And if you can overcome the rejection and keep coming, that's all that matters at the end of the day, because you may get 99 rejections, but on the 100th acceptance, you forget the other 99.
Correct. I love no. I love a quick no, because that means I can move on. My favorite, I wrote a book in 2013 when I thought I was going to win my appeal. And in it I write, my favorite word in the English language is next. There's always another person, another deal, even another wife. I'm sorry to say it like that, but there's always another adventure, another company, another buck. I mean, that to me is equivalent. Next is equivalent to the word hope.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's so important. So I didn't know this about you. This is a great story. Now, at what point in your life did the stuttering issue sort of subside?
Yeah, it really happened towards the end of high school and beginning of college. I remember you kind of have a relapse sometimes. And I remember going to speech therapy in college a couple of times when I was at Michigan. And you just have to keep your mind trained on what you learn through hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of practice. Because at the end of the day, practice is critical. Practice till you can't get it wrong.
Repetition. I get it. It's really
repetition. One other thing I did in college, and again, I think today, in the generation today, the younger generation doesn't want to do what I'll call the boring, monotonous routine work. I stuffed envelopes for 3 cents in college, and and that was a great experience for me. I created a production run essentially where I had the envelopes stacked together. I had Kleenex that I had Kleenex that I had wet, and I would just take the envelopes and I'd do the sticky and I'd close them as one after the other. It was an envelope production line.
I love it.
And it taught me that there's no thing as a shortage of hard work, boring work to get to where you're going. Everybody should do it. Everyone thinks today, oh my gosh, you run an investment firm, you have a real estate company, you have a successful podcast. But the reality is, to be successful, 90% of your day plus is doing the boring, monotonous, routine work that most people don't see. They only see the end result. So it's very, very important. You got to put in the work. You got to know that work is not always fun. It's not always exciting. And there's a lot of work that goes into somebody's success.
100%. It takes 20 years to become an overnight success. That's what they say. And there's so much wisdom in those little adages. You know what I mean? Let me ask you. So, you're a good looking guy and you were tall, right? Even though you were lanky. But you're great. You're very good in school. You're intelligent. So you're able to retain, absorb, comprehend material. My question is, at what point did you have some success with women? How was that? Because of the confidence issue, the stuttering. I'm very curious to know, is just guy to guy, like, you know what I mean? Like, because there's nothing like a good woman for a man's confidence.
I think it came over time. It's very important to be able to communicate with people. And once I learned to speak and not to stutter, it was easier for me to go up and approach women and ask them on a date. And when I got to college, things really changed, because in high school, everyone knows you as, hey, Randy the stutterer. But in college, I had a fresh start.
Right.
And most people didn't know, and my speech had improved. And even then, I was a shy kid. I mean, back in the day, I didn't have the confidence. I'd go to this bar, Good Time Charlie's, and you'd have to swig a few beers down. That back then, I didn't love beer. I just drank it for a little buzz.
Yep.
And it allowed me to go up to women. There's a name for that. I don't know what it's called.
Liquid courage. Liquid courage.
Liquid courage. So once you have some liquid courage, you can approach somebody. And I was never the kind of guy that wanted to go from one woman to the next to the next. I always wanted to find somebody who I could be in a relationship with, where we could support each other. And over time, when I became more successful, starting in law school, I'm talking about grade successful, you do earn more confidence. And then you're in the working world. And I lost my job 5.5 weeks after moving to Los Angeles. And I didn't have any
My
friends. And
God.
I had $3,000 in the bank. And I'd forced myself to go out. And you meet someone at a bar and say, "Oh, what are you doing?" You kind of, mumble, nothing right now. And that wasn't good for my confidence. So at that
Temporarily,
point in time,
I'm recouping.
I wasn't going out and approaching women for a date. But ultimately, over time, I think we all become more confident when we have a little bit more success in our life. And it just gives you a little bit more pop and confidence and allows you to go up to someone and introduce yourself and say, "Hi, how are you? I'm Randy."
It's that simple, really, at the end of the day, because the women want to meet you too. They're more nervous than you are. They get all
Uh,
dressed up and they're waiting for some guy to come over and talk to them, and they have to act like they're not. But that's sort of the game. But
I'm not
also when
sure. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I understand there's some amount of people who go out to meet people in person. I think in today's day and society, that there are all these online dating sites. I know
it's crazy.
probably 50 people who met their spouse that way.
Yeah,
But I think that if you want to meet, I think that if you meet somebody in person, you have the opportunity to see them and talk to them. For me, that was always a much better way to meet somebody and see, okay, maybe this is someone I want to have lunch with.
yep, I get it. And don't forget, as you move through life, you went to University of Michigan. You had a new start, but also you're with like-minded people. You with fairly intelligent people go to that university. So you weren't dealing with just, I hate to say it like this, the regular assortment of schmoes that, you went to elementary school with that picked on you, et cetera. Junior high school, they call it middle school now, high school, et cetera. So you had a new start, but you were also with a different crowd. And I think that, as you move through life, you're in a different crowd now. And look at the people that you podcast with. It's a different crowd because you've earned your way. You've earned your ticket to the big room. And so, I applaud you for that. And, it gives you, it reflects on your profile. See, I don't know you. We've never met. We've never spoken. You have, I guess, or your team has spoken to my booker, Stephanie's my ex-wife, et cetera. And by the way, stunningly beautiful woman, and former model, et cetera. But I'm not. It's not lost on me as you've moved through life. You better just a quick question: were your parents well off? Were they wealthy or upper middle class?
I think my parents went through very different and important changes in their life. When I was young, my dad was a younger lawyer. He had had some success younger, but I lived with my mom and we were divorced. There were definitely some hard times there.
Yeah.
And you see your parents struggle and it's very difficult on you and it also motivates you. You want to make enough money to support yourself and to support a future family and save for your future. And I always knew that when I made some money, I was going to save money to not only take a risk on myself, but at some point to provide for my family. And I was able to do that. I think parents are great motivators. You look around, you see what's going on. My dad would leave for work at 3:30 in the morning, and he was a very hard worker.
Wow.
He was a lawyer, a retired lawyer. My mom had a number of jobs. She remarried. She was taking care of 5 kids at one point. And you just have to evaluate your situation and just look around and say, okay, well, these are my parents. I take a lot of their good qualities. I also have a lot of their bad qualities. And at a young age that, all right, your parents are not perfect. And this is true in life also. You want to look around, see who is surrounding you, and try to emulate the good qualities that people have to improve your own life and don't take the bad qualities. And something else, you talked about the company that you keep. You are the company that you keep. And when I was in school, most of my friends were very, very highly motivated. They did very, very well in school. I knew they were going to be very successful in life. Without exception, maybe 1 or 2 people, they all were. I would study at the law library and I'd be there till 9 or 10 o'clock at night on a Wednesday and Thursday night where I didn't have a lot going on.
Yep.
And some days I'd be there till 8 o'clock at night. But there were basically 10 of us who would do the same thing. And if you look back 35 years later, every single one of those people has been massively successful in their life. It goes to work ethic, and it goes to keeping the company that you keep. And all of my friends who went to law school and they in business school and they did really well in school, they're also very, very successful. You are the company that you keep. And if you have anybody in your life, we all have people in our life who are the doubters, who don't take the risk that you take, who are envious of what you're doing. But those people are a cancer, and you should eliminate them from your life. They're not supportive. You want to surround yourself with people that support you, encourage you, believe in you. At the end of the day, that's critical to our path to success.
I love it, and I thank you for sharing that, because I'm in agreement 100% with everything you say. Now, so you graduate law school, and what happens then? Do you go to work in a law firm? Or do you practice law? Do you go right into business?
So I practice. So as many people know, the way that recruiting at the highest ranked and best law schools in the country work, they come and interview you on campus when you're a second-year student. You do interviews with someone that comes on campus. Then you have a callback. You meet a lot of people. And then you either get a job offer to be a summer associate or you don't. So the best law firm in Detroit had always been Honigman Miller, now just known as Honigman. And being from Detroit, I spent a summer there. And then I determined I really don't want to live there. I was at law school in Chicago. I love Chicago. So I interviewed as a third-year student, which is very difficult or more difficult to get a job as a third-year student because you didn't have the opportunity to work there and show what you can do in the summer. So I ended up working at a firm called Catton. And I really didn't like law school. We can talk about that in a few minutes. But I worked 20 to 30 hours a week at Catton. I was making $30 per hour. And I had some real money coming in. I made very, very good money. And ultimately, I was going to work in the bankruptcy and reorg group, which is one of the largest and most profitable divisions of the firm. And as it turned out, the head of that department wanted me working with him. So my office, and he was a managing partner of the office. So my office was directly next to him. It was a huge office. I had a little office. I'd go in there, and I had a great working relationship with him. Then what happened was I was working with a lot of people in the Los Angeles office, and I was going out to spring break in Los Angeles, and the people in Los Angeles said, "Hey, come by the office. We'd love to meet you." At that point, the managing partner of the Los Angeles office said, "Hey, I think you're great, and would you consider moving out here?" Bankruptcy and reorg wasn't something that I was excited about. I knew I would be an entrepreneur one day. I wanted to learn about business. And they were building a corporate department at Catton in Los Angeles. So the plan was they had hired somebody who had not made partner at a big firm and did a lateral move as a non-equity partner to Catton. And then he hired me to be a first-year associate. So I get to Los Angeles, I have $3,000 in the bank. I haven't passed the bar yet. Business is slow. I walk around the halls looking for business. Then I get a call 5.5 weeks later after starting at the firm, and can you please come down to the conference room? I go down to the conference room, and the partner I was working for says, I'm sorry, we're letting you go.
Oh my God.
And I was sitting there thinking, why are you letting me go? I just got here. Business was slow. And the interesting thing is sometimes in the workforce, people don't like you. They don't like the way you look. They don't like the way that they dress. This guy was jealous that the managing partner of the office had given me his Oakland Raiders tickets.
Oh my gosh.
And tickets to the Raiders game over the weekend. I came out of the managing partner's office and he said, "Hey, what was he talking to you about?" And I said, "Oh, he gave me his tickets for the weekend." And my boss said he did. You could see my boss was jealous. He didn't like it. I started working for the managing partner. And then my boss called me in the conference room. I mean, it doesn't happen that you get laid off 5.5 weeks after working at a firm.
No.
It's unheard of. You're not supposed to know anything coming out of law school. And I remember just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this is terrible. What am I going to do? I went back to my office. I was going to cry. I wasn't going to give him that. Went back to my office, called my mom. It was her 50th birthday and started bawling. And the way I found out that I was being originally terminated was before I got the call to come down to the conference room, I got an email from the librarian in Chicago saying, please turn in your library books before the end of the day. And I was just stunning. I'm looking around. I started walking the halls. All the doors were closed. Started calling my boss. No one answered the phone. And then I get that call, come on down to the conference room. And it was really shocking. I'd been fired from my first job 5.5 weeks after starting. That was not a good legal career. So the legal climate was very poor at the time, and it was hard to get a job. So I was looking at waiting tables. I waited tables at Chi-Chi's and the Olive Garden in college.
You were an attorney.
I'm
you
a
passed the
lawyer
bar
at this part. I'm a lawyer.
And you're working
time.
tables.
I went to Los Angeles. I'm a lawyer when I go to Los Angeles. And I thought, gosh, I need a job. I'm going to have to wait tables, even though I'd gone to law school and I always graduated top of my class. And so a recruiter found a job for me in Costa Mesa, Orange County. I thought, what's that? I know it's naive. I never thought of the Orange County before. I accepted the job. I needed to. I drove 53.5 miles to work every day.
Oh my God.
I leave the house at 4. I leave the house at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd get back because it took 90 minutes minimum. And then I get back at home 9, 10 o'clock at night. It was brutal. I didn't like what I was doing. It was a small office. And I did that for 6 months. After that, I went to the managing partner in Los Angeles, which was the main office. They had 50 lawyers. They had 6 in Costa Mesa. And I said, hey, Rick, I'd like to move down, or I'd like to transfer to the Los Angeles office. Right. And he said, no, if you want to stay at the firm, you got to move down there. I said, okay, well, I'm not moving down there. So now I was looking at my third job in 8 months. It was the worst start to a legal career that you could ever possibly have. And you know what? You just plug away. I got my third job at a great firm, also a Chicago-based firm, doing tax work. I thought, gosh, that's the last thing in the world I want to do is do tax work. But at the end of the day, I was happy to have a job. It was 2 miles from my house. I had a more comfortable life, and you just got to grind through things that you don't want to do.
Now, when you say your house, I'm guessing you were renting an apartment at that point, right?
Apartment. I was renting an apartment.
Right, so
2.5 miles from my apartment.
Right, but you could have moved to Costa Mesa. You could have probably got out of your lease, right? Well, you didn't have the money.
No,
you're an attorney, right? I don't know what in Florida.
No, I mean the lease. No, the lease is standard. I couldn't have gotten out of it. I was never going to get out of it. I was never going to move. The office was 2.5 miles from my apartment.
No, that's the newest office. Not your original job.
My third job was 2.5 miles from my.
No, I understand
apartment.
that. I'm talking about the first job that you had to go 53 miles each way.
No, that was the second job. The first job was in the same place. It was in the same building essentially that I was fired in.
I just want you to know, my daughter's a first-year law student right now.
Where does she go?
Nova.
Okay.
And she's killing it. She's very comfortable, and we're very proud of her, and she's loving it. She's got her little posse, her friends, and she's in the law library some nights till 11 at night. She went to University of Florida, Gainesville, which now is all of a sudden being elevated in a lot of people's eyes. And she graduated cum laude in 3 years. She got a 4-year degree in 3 years. And now she's tackling law school. And I couldn't be more proud. So I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, I'm like internalizing your story, thinking about my daughter. You went through really, I'd never really heard of a lawyer that had something like this in his first year as an attorney.
Yeah, 3 jobs in 8 months. I set a world record.
I mean, bro, you're crazy, wild, bro. I mean, having studied you a little bit today and backing and filling, I'm understanding you were preparing whatever power in the universe that's greater than us was preparing you for greatness, because you went through a lot of trauma, really, even as an attorney. I mean, you're a licensed attorney. It's a very noble profession. You have the words Esquire on your name if you want to put them there. And wow. So
When I look back and people have said, and people wanted, when I look back and people wanted to know, how did you get your third job in 8 months coming out of law school? Because that's a serious ding against you. And by then, the market had picked up a little bit within the next year. And so now I got all these job interviews at the best firms in Los Angeles. But at the end of the day, a lot of people saw the resume, the story checked out. But why take a risk on someone on the third job in 8 months when you can hire someone who didn't have 3 jobs in 8 months? And at the end of the day, the reason I got that job was because I studied for the interview as much as you can, and there was no Google back then, so the research was much, much harder to do. I sold myself, and it's so important when you want something to have the passion, the drive to show everybody what you can do. I had hunger coming out of my stomach. It was fire coming out of my eyes, and I just needed a job. And I was going to get that job, even if I knew I was going to hate it, which I did, to put food on my table, to save money, to take a chance to bet on myself. And that's exactly what I did.
It's amazing because I tell you, I've owned 3 brokerage firms, a bank, a fund, and my last place I had over 4,000 people on my payroll. The 15th of every month, over 4,000 employees at different companies that I owned and was responsible for. I was CEO of, with lead investor in. And when guys would come to me and I would look at a resume and I would see 3 jobs in a year, that says something's wrong. Like that's a no. I have people coming to me now. I'm building a company now. I'm building a company called Raw Media, and we're expanding. It's content creation. This is the new media for the new age. This is the biggest thing. It's going to be the biggest thing there is. Social media. I mean, potentially we can reach 8 billion people today for the first time in human history. We're all connected because of brilliant technology, but we're separated by 100 different languages. But now Meta's overcome that. This will be translated. The clips from this video, this interview, will be automatically translated into Hindi, Spanish, and Portuguese. I've entered this beta program with Meta, and they told me within a few short months my content will be translated. If I choose to, to go forward with that in 100 languages, in 160 plus countries. And so your story where you are today and the things that you've accomplished, let's say at the time you start to become an investor in sort of pre-IPO type companies, I'm very anxious to know. All right, you got your you're still a child lawyer, and you've been moving around. You're obviously a very smart guy, and you have a passion for communication. You're a great sales guy. I see that. I'm a communicator myself, and I, value recognizes value. Pick it up from there. Now you got your third. You're a lawyer, first year, third spot, 2 miles from your house. Now what happens?
I hated what I was doing. I didn't like my life. It's not great waking up every day, going to a job that you absolutely hate.
Terrible.
But at the end of the day, it's a means to an end, and you got to do the work. I mean, so many people today, they have a job, they don't like it, they quit, their resume, job hoppers. That's not the way to go. You come out of school, you work hard, even if you don't love what you're doing, it's called work. And if you can't make it work at a job you don't like, it's going to be very hard for you to succeed in the workplace. So for me, I didn't like what I was doing. I said, you know what? I have an idea. I wanted originally to go to business school instead of law school. They made you wait 2 years to go and work at a successful financial company. It could have been a Wall Street broker, an investment banker, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't test well. The reason I got into Northwestern because I graduated top 1% of my class. So I knew I didn't test well. I'd have to take the business boards, and I didn't want to go through the opportunity cost of spending a few $100,000 for a business degree as opposed to trying to find a job while I was still continuing to make money. The only schools that would have really helped me with a law degree from Northwestern would have been Harvard and Stanford. There was no way I was getting into those schools.
I get it.
So I thought, all right, I want a professional MBA. I know that isn't going to happen. So I'm going to do something really unique and crazy that had almost a 0% chance of success, which I was going to write letters to the most successful CEOs in the world asking for an informational interview, not a job interview, because if it's a job interview, your letter's going to the shredder. They have a human resources department. You're just another person sending a crazy letter. So what I did is I thought, you know what? I want to create a different letter, the kind of letter that nobody has ever received before. Stand out, make it different, and have everyone say, oh my gosh, where did this come from? So the first part of writing a great letter that no one has ever seen before is doing the research, doing the homework. And my law firm had an all-you-can-eat subscription. They paid one price each month to something called LexisNexis. LexisNexis is an online research tool for lawyers that has every case online. It's very expensive to use, and it was a profit center because the firm would bill clients for the LexisNexis research that they did. So I use LexisNexis for client development. That's what I called it. And you have to type in some kind of code when you do it and tell people or tell the computer what you're doing. So I made a list of 300 CEOs, and I wrote them all letters. And the letters were very, very different. So back to LexisNexis. So if there were, and there was no Google back then. So this was the only way you could find periodicals, articles online. And I would do searches in LexisNexis database, went back 20 years. And I had a list of 300 people. I print out every article on every single person on my 300-person Excel spreadsheet. And I wrote single space, 3-page letters that detailed every single job they had ever had in chronological order. Steve Bolenbach at the time, the CEO of Marriott, Stephen Bolenbach, the CEO of Marriott's first job was scooping ice cream at Disneyland when he was 16 years old for $1.30 an hour. Who knows that? Almost nobody, but that's the kind of research that you have to be doing. You got to stand out. You got to do it. And so I wrote this letter. Not only was the letter unique in terms of the content and every job they'd ever had, but the presentation was unique as well. It started with a quote under a cellophane cover that the CEO and the person had given at some point in their career. Michael Eisner, the CEO of Disney, who was one of the biggest CEOs in the world at the time, said the key to Disney was how we hire. It was italicized, it was in quotes, and that had his name, and that was Time Magazine, and then the date. So everyone's looking at this letter, oh my gosh, what is this? The letter was tabbed. It had my three-page single-space letter, then my transcript from Michigan, my transcript from law school, and then I had a letter of recommendation that someone had written me, one of my mentors for law school, and then the last was a piece from the Michigan Daily newspaper where they had a campus program called Michigan Daily, and I hosted the dating segment of that, and you took a girl on a date, it was filmed, and the funny thing about that is we were one and done. So, but I had something different to include in the letter, and everybody told me that writing letters to some of the most successful, everyone told me that writing letters to some of the most successful CEOs in the world was the dumbest idea. It was stupid and a complete waste of time. You know what? Don't listen to the haters. Trust your gut. Go get it. And ultimately, they were wrong. So I didn't get one meeting. I got 80 meetings. And the reason I got 80 meetings is because I did the homework, I did the work, I created something unique and different that nobody had ever seen, and I turned out the doubters. You got to trust yourself. You got to go for it, and you have absolutely nothing to lose. So why not go do it?
You got to do what the other guy doesn't. That's the bottom line. What the other guy's not willing to do, you got to do.
Yeah.
And I love that story. Randy, I love that story.
Thank you.
I got chills. I got chills when you said 80. I got chills.
Thank you. And we'll talk about the follow-up a little bit later in the show as well.
How did you have those meetups? So what did you do? I mean, they didn't have this kind of technology then, I don't think, right? You could just Skype in.
Well, I printed out the letters. So one thing that's very, very important, one thing that a lot of people don't do is they don't treat the people at the top. One thing that people don't do is they treat lower level employees differently than their bosses or the senior level people. And at the end of the day, you should treat everybody the same way. How many people in the building know the custodian's name? I do. How many people ignore the custodian? Most people. I always stop. I ask them, how are you? They say, hi, Juan, what's going on? Or hi, Steve, what's going on? I say, hey, Randy, we'll stop and talk for 5 minutes. You treat everybody the same way.
Thank you.
So in this case, I was buds with the guys in the mailroom. Mailroom people are huge. They're key. They knew what I was doing. I was writing all these letters. They were putting them together for me. So they had the copy machines running.
I love
My
it.
letter was in a black spiral binder with the cellophane cover. They put this all together for me. And then they gave me envelopes, thick, sturdy ones. And by the way, if you send a thin envelope, you're thin and weak. If you send a sturdy one, you're thick and strong. These little things are very
Love
critical.
that.
These intangibles are incredibly important. You get a
Details.
letter, it's thin. You
Details.
got a big one that's thick. It's great. So these guys were my buds, and they put these 300 letters together for me. Where sometimes, during their lunch hour, no one goes in there. No lawyers are going into the mailroom. They had these big copy machines back then. They were full production runs, and these guys were my buds. They made it happen. Some nights I was in the office till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. The printer would jam. I'd say, oh my God, I'm writing these letters. This thing's going to come out the next morning or at some point. There are a lot of moments where you start to think about yourself and say, oh my gosh, what's
What am I
going?
doing?
And at some point, the manager of the office comes into my office. Her name was Sue Menger. She closes the door and said, hey, Randy, you've got a $43,000 charge bill to client development this month. And she said, what's going on here? And I looked at her and I said, Sue, I think I have the kind of personality to bring in business. She said, well, you are doing research on the CEO of Disney. And and she said, you're doing research on the CEO of Disney. And I said to her, but why not go after Disney as a client? And she looks at me, she's thinking, okay.
Right.
She didn't know what to do. So we had a nice look, said, okay. And she walked out the door.
This is a fascinating story. I mean, this is really unbelievable, because everybody looks at the shiny stuff, founder shares, investment in Google, all this and that. And this is how you get there, right? You got to do what the other guy doesn't do. I love it. You were essentially looking for a different job at this place when you were writing 300 letters to these CEOs. What I'm dying to know is so now that you got an opportunity to meet or speak to them, now what?
Yeah, so this was the interesting thing.
What year was this? Do you remember what year this was?
Yeah, this was 1995, 1996.
It's like the beginning of the internet.
Writing,
beginning of the internet.
This letter writing, yeah, there was nothing online. So you couldn't do the research online. And
Crazy.
It took essentially 8 or 9 months of doing this and doing the prep and writing the letters to get the job that I wanted. But so I'd go in for all these meetings, I'd meet all these CEOs, and once you're in there, what's going on? I'd walk out of there, nice to meet you. And then I go meet this guy in Detroit named David Hermelin, and I take the red-eye flight. And the interesting thing, my mom had known him since, I think, the 3rd grade, but I didn't ask her for intro. I'd written the same letter that I did to these people, and it's the same way we build businesses today. You start with a blank slate. It's the same way I built my podcast. You put the first brick in place, the second brick, the third, you build it one by one, because every brick is a credibility add to what you're doing. The first guest on my podcast was Sam Zell, one of the most successful business people in the world. I had my first meeting that I got in a letter writing campaign was Mark Platt, the CEO of Columbia TriStar Studios, and I just started building from there. And putting names on letters like the CEO of Disney and Viacom and publicly traded companies in Los Angeles. It's the same way today where the guests, it's the same way today that the people you meet, the customers that you have helps you get other customers because it helps and creates credibility to whatever that you're doing.
Correct.
And so I go to meet David. I take the red-eye flight. I have no money. I'm sitting in the back of the plane. I can't sleep. And I go there with no sleep, and David said, meet him at 7 in the morning. And 7 in the morning was 4 in the morning. And so I get there, I get off the plane, I take a taxi to meet David, and he's in this deli, and it's like the mafia down there where there's a line of 6 or 7 people to meet him, and I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? So I wait my turn, and David was the kind of guy, he was a great mentor, he helped people, he gave back, he was an amazing role model for me to give back once I became successful. So I get my turn with David, we sit down, he said he wrote this letter, he said, where are you from? Detroit. He He said, "You're from Detroit?" "Yeah." He said, "Who are your parents?" I said, "Linda Ross is my mom." He said, "Linda's your mom? Gosh, I've known her forever. I love your mom. Why
Wow.
didn't you have her give me a call to set this up?" I said, "David, I'm here, aren't I?"
Right.
So it's better to earn your way than ask your parents for an introduction. You get more respect. Sure, your parents can make intros for you, but it's better to get the meeting that yourself. So I sit with David. He says, "Gosh, look at all these people that you met with. What's going on in these meetings?" And I said, "What do you mean, David?" And he said, "What's you write this letter, you get access to people that they've never taken a cold letter before. That's what they're all telling you. What's the outcome of these meetings? Do you say I want a job?" And I said, "No." And he asked, "Why not?" And I said, "I don't know. I feel bad. I'm in the room." And he said to me, "Let me tell you something, Randy. I sell insurance for a living. People don't wake up in the morning and say, I need life insurance. You got to call people and you got to ask for the order. So my advice to you is ask for the order." And the bell rang, Ross. It was like, wow, I need to ask for the order. I need to go in there rather than just saying, okay, I'm going to impress somebody and hopefully they're going to say, okay, I want a job, or you're the kind of person that I want working with me. So the bell rang. And he also said something to me, Ross, which he said, "You're only going to get one chance to meet these people, make it count." So the bell rang. It changed my life ultimately because I got a job working for Feli Broad, one of the most successful business people on the planet. But I also took his advice, and while I respected David, I said, "You know what? I don't believe in that. I believe in these. This will not be the last time I meet these people. I'm going to write them letters and stay in touch
I
with
love it.
them."
Yep.
And having the relationships and staying in touch with them helped us create a huge technology company, because when we started the company, who did we call for customers? The people I had kept in touch with
80
for years
CEOs.
by sending the CEOs that I
Correct.
the reason we had a lot of intros because I kept relationships and wrote update letters with all of the people I had met with.
I love it. One thing I like to teach, and it's something that was taught to me, is, right before I went public in London, right before they put me on I was doing a spot because my stock was up 40% the first day. I basically reopened the markets after 9/11 and after the dot-com crash from March of 2000, the Enron, the WorldCom, the Lucent Technologies from 80 to 0, et
Yeah,
cetera.
Lucent. There you go.
All those scandals and all that fraud
Yeah.
and so forth and so on. And I was the first IPO on either side of the Atlantic, especially in London. There was nothing with Sky Capital Holdings, priced at £1.85, opened at £2, closed £2.25, and kept it there and worked it up to £3 and did 2 different pipes and all these different good things. The head of this London Stock Exchange was so excited because they didn't think I would succeed. They gave me a chance,
Yeah.
but everybody said it was impossible. And they said, "You're going on national TV tonight." And I'm like, I was so busy celebrating that we made this offering, and now I was about to buy a bank in London, Everett Financial in Wandsworth. They had done about $500 million in turnover the year before. It was a serious thing, 100,000 accounts with on deposit. And 9 minutes on national TV called CEO on the Hot Seat. And right before they made me hire this IR guy. They organized all this for me. And right before I go on camera, they say, "Do you want to be remembered?" I said, "Excuse me?" The guy, he's physically grabbing my suit. "Do you want to be remembered?" And I'm like, I'm thinking, what kind of question is that? I'm like, "Yeah, of course I want to be remembered." He goes, "Then you have to do something memorable. You have to do something memorable." And that's a lesson I learned, and took to heart, because just like you, when you have the chance to meet somebody, that's spectacular, it's good to be remembered, right? So,
No doubt. No doubt.
I can say I got Randy Kaplan on my podcast, so I'm pretty excited right now. You understand? Because you became a guy that you would like to interview, actually. And, I feel like, we're punching above our weight. And I'm excited to have you here. I love your story. I love your passion and the way you are able to dissect your own story and share it with us. You're an excellent communicator. And
Well, thank you. So let me pick it up from there. So
please.
I get a meeting with Eli Broad, who's the CEO of a company called Sun America. He was one of only 3 people at the time to start 2 Fortune 500 companies. And through the research that I had done, I found out that he had a job called the assistant to the chairman. So I wrote him this letter. I get the meeting, and the meeting goes very, very well. At the end of the meeting, he says, I have this job, the assistant to the chairman. I said, I do. And then I proceeded to name the 5 people that had the job before me. And then I proceeded to name the 5 people that had that job since he started the company.
Wow.
And at that point, he's taken back. He'd been taken back the whole interview. And he said to me at the end, I have this job. I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. And he said, I'm not promising you anything, but I want you to take a accounting class at UCLA. And if you give me a catalog, I will pick one out for you. I left this office. I ran across the street where my law firm was, down to the parking garage, sweaty day, drove to UCLA, double parked, got an extension catalog, went back to my apartment, typed the thank you note, and had it back at his office in 57 minutes.
You're an animal,
so
bro.
Important.
You're an animal.
It's so important, though. It would have been very different if I'd sent the letter the day before.
Correct.
Would have been very different if I sent the letter the next day or just wrote a simple note. But I got him the catalog. It showed that I wanted the job. It showed motivation. That's what you got to do. I tell people today, you have a job interview in person. You go downstairs. You wait 10 minutes. You write the thank you letter, and you go back up to the office.
I love it.
Speed counts. Think about it. If you're interviewing someone for a job and someone writes you a thank you note and brings it up 10 minutes later versus 30 minutes later versus 5 hours later, you send it in the mail, it gets here in 2 or 3 days, it makes a massive impact. Think about it from the perspective of the person interviewing you. Speed matters. It shows hunger, motivation, drive, and that you want it.
I love it.
So at this point, I drop it off. I get a call from his assistant. He said, Mr. Broad is traveling, but I'd like you to take one of 2 classes. You give me the classes. And then I said, she gave me the 2 suggested classes. And then I said, tell Mr. Broad I'm going to take them both. Again, do more than somebody suggests that you do. If someone tells you to take 1 class, why not take 2 classes? Come in over prepared. A few weeks later, I get a call, 7 in the morning. I'm in my office. I'm the vice chairman. My name is Jay Wintraub of Sun America. And I heard you had a nice meeting. And I went in. Job interview went very well, 90 minutes. And I was hired on my 27th birthday to be the assistant to the chairman to Eli Broad at one of the most successful companies in the world. And the only reason I got that job was because of the preparation, standing out, doing something different, practicing, rehearsing. I practiced my job interview in my bathroom mirror for 90 minutes on 3 separate days. Wow. Who does that? Nobody, which is exactly why you should.
I love it. You're a beast, bro. You're a beast. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is really what it takes. And we're showing now the world. I'm so grateful. Thank you. So now let's go pick it up. This is 95, 96, right?
Yeah,
Sun America is an enormous. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. My first day of work, I think, was January 3rd, 1996, and I get some stock options. I'm the junior person on a very, very senior team. He gave me a managing director title, and the reason why the title was important is because we were dealing with investment banks, partners at Goldman Sachs and all these other firms, and so I was technically in the corporate development group, which meant that we were looking to buy other companies, and so within a month, I had to learn, with no experience, creating 40-page. Within a month of getting there, I had to learn how to create on Excel. I had no experience on how to create very sophisticated 40-page financial. 40. I had to learn to create I had to learn how to create very sophisticated Excel models. And you go in there and you say, "Oh my gosh." How am I going to do this? You put your nose to the grind, you practice. There were no manuals. There was no YouTube. You just got to figure it out yourself.
Back then.
And you do what you got to do. You got to teach yourself. You always got to be the best you can be.
Well, people don't understand what we went through, just 30 years ago. The tools today are ridiculous.
Yeah. And so what happened there is I was a junior person on a very senior team, and I was a research guy. So corp dev, you're looking for companies to buy.
No.
Our stock was so successful that it was hard to buy another stock, financial stock, because there's something called goodwill. And goodwill is the value of the company less tangible assets. And you take an accounting hit. When you take a hit, your stock suffers. So we looked at all these companies to buy. We didn't buy any in the first year. And after the first year, I told Eli that I want more to do. And he said, "Hey, be patient. You're my first round draft pick." So the second year at the firm, I wanted to do more, and we didn't buy a single company. We bought part of a company, and it just wasn't, I wasn't fulfilled. I wanted more. I thought I could do more. So I went to him. It was very risky, and I said, hi. I said, I'm grateful for the opportunity here. You've given me the opportunity of a lifetime, but I want to do more, and I think I'd like to do something different the following year. And he said to me, Randy, you've been a great employee. You've been loyal, and in that kind of job, everyone wants to know what's he really like. You know, you're an insider. You see him at the office. People want you to say something negative. Loyalty to your boss is so important. Be a good soldier. Do what you're supposed to do. Never talk about your boss in a negative way, because you never know who's listening and when it's going to come back to people. And it usually does come back to people. So there's no reason to do it at all. So he said to me, I think you're making a mistake, but let me know if you want to meet anybody, not that you're going to need my help. So I stayed that third year, looked at a lot of different things. I looked at buying laundromats and writing a book and working at a technology company. And ultimately, I met some people from MIT through my ex-wife, and the four of us started a technology company called Akamai Technologies, and we invented a new way to serve web traffic, to serve it faster, better, more reliably than companies could do it at the time. But what I did was also very, very unusual in that I left $2 million of in-the-money stock options on the table for an unproven, untested company 3,000 miles away commuting to work without a CEO. People thought I lost my mind. And huge risk, because if it doesn't work, you've lost kind of the big bullet you're going to fire coming from a position working with someone, a Forbes 400 person. And so you got to trust yourself. You got to trust your gut. People thought that you're crazy, Randy. And I had a supportive wife at the time, and I had a supportive mom, and said, you know what? I believe in you. And ultimately, I believed in myself. And people have said, well, what was it that made you leave this job to start this company with all those factors? And I said, you know what? I'd worked with some of the most brilliant people in the world. Eli Broad was brilliant. He had built 2 Fortune 500 companies from scratch. You look around, and my partners were brilliant as well. We go to these meetings that I set up in Los Angeles through my relationships, and you could see the reaction in what we were doing, that the bell would go off for them, say, gosh, you know, if this really works, this could help us improve our service, what we're doing, add value to our company, and reduce our costs. And that's a very effective proposition to companies where the net was exploding and they had more and more traffic. So you evaluate the team that you're on and say, okay, are these the kind of people that I could be partners with at the end of the day? What can I add, and do people complement one another? So ultimately, I took this massive risk. It paid off. I was their original VP of Biz Dev. I had relationships that I set up, and it was crazy. It worked out.
Randy, there's so much here to unpack for the average bear out there. I mean, people. So you're at Sun America. You're an insider.
I'm at Sun America.
You're an assistant to the big boss there. It's a big company.
Functionally, yes.
Hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in business, et cetera, in value.
Yes.
And you're earning a good salary. You're making some real money at this point. Few hundred thousand a year.
My salary, I think my salary at the time was $132,000. And the crazy thing is my salary at the law firm was $80,000. So just by writing these letters, getting the kind of job, my salary increased, I don't know, 50, 60%.
Yep.
Just because I made the right move to a different company. And the interesting thing too, Ross, is Sun America had a legal department of 8 people. So, and they're all very smart. They went to grade school. So here's this person coming in who has a terrible legal resume, and suddenly he's working for the chairman of the company, and they've never worked with the chairman of the company.
Well, exactly.
There's a lot of resentment there. And at the end of the day, the reason why I got that job was because I did something different. I asked for the order with the decision maker and the head of the company.
You know, you've made a lot of those kind of moves over the course of your life. We're finding out now. But what I want to make it clear is that you were getting paid stock options. Okay.
Yeah, the stock options.
Eli put you in a program, an ESOP program, correct?
No, ESOP is just a regular stock option.
Oh, you're an executive.
I mean, I think that's going a little too far, but
I mean, you said there were $2 million that were in the money.
There's some level of employees who receive stock options. Not all employees have them at a lot of companies.
Correct.
At Sun America, the junior employees didn't get them. So at some level, you are eligible to receive stock options, which gives you the right to buy a stock at a future price once, even though the stock price has increased during the period of time where you've
Correct.
worked at a company.
So basically, let me just explain for the audience. So you might have the right to, the stock might be trading at 20 at some point. You know, the board organizes these options, and you have the right, certain employees have the right to buy these, the stock at $20. And now the stock goes to $100. You still have the right for a period of time to exercise those options. And like you said, they $2 million in the money. You walked away from that essentially, correct?
Yeah, well, just to complete the math. So if you get stock options issued at $20 a share, you decide to cash out at $100 a share, you now have $80 a share profit.
Correct.
It only works if the company is successful and the stock price increases in value. It doesn't work if you get stock at a value and the stock price decreases in value, which is why you see employees leaving companies that have had huge prospects because today in the technology world, certainly in a lot of companies, the main component of compensation is stock options.
Correct. Everybody wants
stock
paper.
Price, and when your stock price goes down, there's no incentive to stay at the company.
Right. Everybody wants that paper. But of course, we know when you're a founder of a company and the company issues you founders shares at what they call par value, which is a theoretical number, a thousandth of a penny, and you typically don't get a few thousand options when you're a founder of a company. You're talking about millions of shares or hundreds of thousands of shares. So now you meet these guys from MIT with your ex-wife, through your ex-wife.
Well, my ex-wife introduced me.
Right.
Well, my future brother-in-law was best friends with one of the founders.
But it's just a great story. I just want people to know this is not like some sophisticated, complex thing. It's regular life, right? The people you know and the people they know, and you're introduced and you meet regular people, and they got an idea. They got potentially, you see a real opportunity potentially with these smart guys.
It's an excellent story, and everyone says, "Oh, it's so complicated." It's not complicated. Anybody can do it. You got to put yourself out there. You got to do the research. You got to do the homework, and ultimately, you got to go after for what you want. This was a crazy idea for me to quit my job and go to unfunded, unproven, untested company with no CEO, 3,000 miles away, commuting to work every week. Crazy idea. It happened. You got to bet on yourself.
Now you were.
It's not going to happen. You got to bet on yourself because it's not going to happen if you don't bet on yourself.
So you were not just a founder. You were a board member, correct?
No, I was not a board member.
Not a board member. Okay.
No, there were 4 founders.
4 founders. You're one of the 4. And
yes.
You got a nice amount of stock. And,
yes.
The business of Akamai, I actually understood it. It was explained very well on your social media. And I have to say that it was shockingly, it made irrational common sense. Provide the service closer to.
So this is huge. For every founder on there, one of the most essential elements of success is the ability to communicate what you're doing in one sentence. Our technology was so sophisticated that when our CTO would go into these meetings, there were math formulators, algorithms written on a chalkboard. And eventually the manager and the VP and the CTO had to come in because no one else could get it. But as a person selling the product, I had to explain to companies, non-technical people, because those were the people that I knew, what we were doing. We could serve web content better, faster, cheaper, and more reliably than anybody and save you money at the same time. It's simple. It's one sentence. Anyone can understand it. I call it the grandmother standard. My grandmother passed away at 104 years old, never had a computer, had to leave high school at 16 years old because she had to go work and was very, very poor. But the grandmother standard is the ability to tell anybody what you're doing without the grandmother standard is the ability to tell and explain to somebody what you're doing who has no experience. And the grandmother standard is the ability to communicate what you're doing to anybody on the planet that in one sentence they will understand what you're doing, even if they have no experience in what you're doing.
That's
It's
interesting.
critical if
Yeah.
you're a founder or an executive and you want to succeed in the workplace. It's amazing to me, Ross, how many founders come in here and I ask them in one sentence in terms of what they do, and they can't explain it. They ramble on. I have to ask questions.
Yep.
And it's amazing how many founders, these business plans that I read and I mentor and I coach so many people, and it's crazy. I have no idea what they're doing. You have to be able to crystallize in simple words and communicate to what you're doing as a founder, as a salesperson, because without it, you cannot be successful.
Yeah, I like to call it an elevator pitch. I say 30 seconds. I got to be able to relay that to you in 30 seconds, and I have to be able to understand it and get a good grip. You go on the 8th floor of the elevator, I could pitch me. By the time we go to the ground floor, I have to know who you are, what you're doing, or else I'm taking a pass. And I agree with you 1,000%. And I didn't know you're a legit founder, and but not a board member. So you weren't an executive at the company, right? You weren't involved in the day to day.
No, I was. I was their VP of Biz Dev.
Okay.
So we had a CTO, a chief scientist, a VP of sales, and then I was VP of Biz Dev.
Why'd you choose not to be on the board? I'm just curious.
I wasn't offered the opportunity, and I wasn't qualified to be on the board. I mean,
Really?
We had some heavy hitters on the board. I recruited a guy named Art Bilger, who ran investment banking at Drexel Burnham, which at one point was the largest investment bank in the world. Yeah. I introduced him to the company. He became the vice chairman of the company, and ultimately the VCs went on the board.
You raised money from venture capital people. What was the valuation?
The first money, the first. As a founder, the first place you should go to raise capital is friends and family. These are people who know
Correct.
you, who have believed in you, and have said, okay, hey, Randy, you are a hard worker. I love you. I knew you were going to make you. Hey, Randy, I love you. I knew you'd be successful one day, and I'm going to back you. That's where people should start.
Correct.
And that's where we started. We raised on our first round $8.25 million at a $12.95 million valuation.
Wow.
Our first investor was a guy named Gil Friesen, who, when I said I'm writing a $100,000 check, which is something that no 27-year-old founder that I've seen in 25 years as a
You were 27? You were 27?
I was 27
wow.
at the time.
Wow.
No, sorry. I take that back. I was 30 years old at the time.
Okay, still.
$400,000. Wow. I was 30 years at the time. I was 30 years old at the time. I'd say $400,000 of my money. And I told Gil, I said, I'm investing $100,000 of my own money. He said, boom, I'm in for 500. And from there, Gil circled the wagon. We had a lot of his friends. And the company did very, very well, as you know.
And so you eventually go public, I think, in 99. Is that right?
Yeah, October 29, 1999.
Not that it mattered.
Which was 6 years to the day I was fired from my law firm.
That's great.
And I cried my ass out to my mom.
What a great story that is, boy. And let me ask you a question. At what valuation did you go public? And who took you public?
Our lead going public was Morgan Stanley, which was the lead investment bank at the
Great
time.
Name. Great name.
They'd taken all of the big companies public, from Cisco and all the major technology companies. They had the most important tech banker at the time, and it was a co-lead by CSFB, Credit Suisse, First Boston. Our stock, because of the demand of the stock, we were the second most oversubscribed IPO in Morgan Stanley history. People wanted our stock. So we went public at $28 a share. Stock closed that day at $145 a share. And it was a huge bump. And the company, the first day it closed, was worth $14.4 billion. And less than 3 months later, the company was worth 300, and less than 2 months later, our stock was worth $35 billion, which at the time was more than the value of Chrysler, Ford, and GM combined. That's interesting because I'm from Detroit.
Crazy.
And then during the dot-com crash, our stock went from ultimately $345 a share to 49 cents a share. We were delisted on the NASDAQ small cap, and eventually made our way back.
I know today I looked, it was about $11 billion in market cap. So it was a wild ride. Did you sell any stock along the way? Did you get a chance to cash out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I sold stock along the way, and saw a house. I mean, I was living in an apartment next to the Jack in the Box, and it was a small apartment, and it was
I
fine.
get
There's
it.
nothing wrong with it. I lived under my means. That's very important for a founder. If you want to bet on yourself, save money, live under your means. I'd save $400,000. My annual nut was $40,000 a year, and I said to myself, you know what? I have 10 years to make something of myself, and I think I'm going to make it. I didn't buy a BMW like a lot of my friends did when they graduated law school. I had an Acura Integra, and then I leased a Lexus right after that. So the investment banks were willing to loan me money, even though you can't pledge your stock. So
Right.
I was looking at homes to buy and ended up buying a dream home. And when we went public, you can't sell your stock either. There's something called a lockup. The investment banks don't want founders dumping stock.
And
They want the
you're under
stock to
one
settle.
you're under 144. I mean, as a founder.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are some restrictions on what you can sell and not sell. We'll keep it very simple for people. And so when the lockup went off, I sold a bunch of stock. I paid off my house. I put money in the bank, and I saved for my future. I was set to some extent financially for the rest of my life. And
the rest of your
obviously,
life.
I still own stock today, so I've had the ride. I've from $345 a share down to 49 cents a share. At the end of the day, my advice to people is when you have inflated stock and you have the opportunity to sell it, don't bet on the future because you never, ever know. I thought, okay, all these companies over the long term, the stock, the Apple stock and Cisco,
Right.
you never know when it's going to go down. And a lot of these stocks, I mean, they've crashed. And so if
They're
you're
going to go
young and
down.
you have the ability, if you're young and you have the ability to take money off the table, the value of compounding capital over long periods of time is something people don't understand. It's critical to your financial future. I learned lessons about greed. I made huge mistakes. And at the end of the day, I'm thankful that things worked out okay.
I have a dear friend who was a managing director of Morgan Stanley. He basically was a director of the investment bank. Michael Butler. I don't know if you know the name.
No.
Very tall, handsome guy. Now has his own fund. He has about $1 billion he manages day to day. He moved to, I think he's in Austin, Texas now. And but he ran Morgan Stanley's investment bank for many years. He worked there, and he was the head of banking at one time. Very good looking guy, originally from Washington State. Played in the Rose Bowl and all, a football player. But it's such a great story. So you now at that during this Akamai ride, let's call it, you are heavily invested with that company personally.
Yeah. So what happened is I left the company. We hired a CEO. He wanted me to move to Boston. I said, I'm not moving because
Wow.
I didn't have to move. I gave up this job. I gave up the Sun America was sold 2.5 months after Sun America was sold 2.5 months once I left.
Oh God.
Everybody fully vested. So I lost $2.5 million
Right there.
for leaving the company. If I had known it was coming, I would have waited,
You would have
obviously.
waited.
And so I had something that said I didn't have to move. And so there's something called termination without cause. The CEO comes and he said, hey, I want you to move. And I said, I'm not moving. I said, well, then you can be head of West Coast sales. I said, well, I helped hire the VP of sales, so I'm not going to do that. So I ended up leaving with fully vested stock. So I ended up leaving. My stock was fully vested, and it allowed me the opportunity to do something else. And I created my own investment firm called Jump Investors. In the last 25 years, I've invested in over 100 companies. Most of the companies go to zero. Everyone thinks people think it's so sexy being a venture capitalist and it must be so great. It's not great because 7 out of 10 deals go to zero. That means you invest $1 million and then you lose $1 million, and it's a weighted average game. So you have to have 10 X's or higher to have appropriate risk-adjusted return. Being a venture capitalist is not as success. Being a venture capitalist is not as sexy as people think it is. You have great moments when you win. That's great. Think of it as you score a massive touchdown. Instead of doing a dance, which you can now do without getting penalized, in football, you just give the ball back to the referee and said, okay, I'm just going to wait for the next time because you know there's bad times ahead.
At my federal trial, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, in his summation, pointing at me, this man did 6 private placements, and only 2 went public.
Yeah.
Only 2.
Yeah.
Only 2.
Yeah.
I only have a 33% average of companies I funded that went public, and people
Oh,
that
that's a good
understand the
average.
business said that puts me in a Warren Buffett category of better. No one ever did
Yeah.
had an average
Yeah,
like
that's a
that,
great average.
and they lambasted me. And by the way, every one of the other private placement people received stock
Yeah.
because I put all the holding companies together and made sure everybody got shares in the companies that went public.
Right.
But they left that out. But I'm just saying, you just very intelligently let people know. It's only a few out of, let's say, 20 or 30 actually make it all the way, as you
Yeah.
experienced with
Yeah.
Akamai.
Yeah, and so what's so interesting, and this is something I think people get wrong. Everyone says, okay, wow, you're a founder of this company, you must be brilliant. No, there's a lot of luck involved. I mean, we create our own luck, we do the work, but having the resume allowed me to get into a lot of good deals. And everyone said, okay, you've got the magic touch. I didn't have the magic touch, and a lot of people don't have the magic touch. Just because you're successful in one thing doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the next thing. And that's very important for
That's
people
really
to
important.
understand. Very important for
The
people.
most important thing you just said is to understand. I've been managing money for wealthy people my whole life. And the one thing I learned is just because you can make millions of dollars or tens of millions in one particular area, you could be a dummy in every other area. It doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right.
But I just want to say one thing where I disagree with you vehemently. You are brilliant. You're a brilliant guy. You're a brilliant guy. You have a very, very unique and specific, determined opinion and viewpoint on what life should be like if you want to be successful. And you're pointing out all the significant. You're actually laying breadcrumbs for everybody today, giving them a trail to follow, because it's all the things you do when nobody's looking, all the sacrifices you make, all the things you don't do when your friends are going out and buying leasing net jets and flying to Vegas and doing these different things. It's all the preparation and the work you did when you wrote those letters, and it's all the things that you overcame as a kid, stuttering and being made fun of, and you didn't want to go to school. I'm sure your mother had to push you out the door some days, and I get all that. There is a lot of pain and suffering that goes into being a successful guy, and all people see are the shiny things like the car, the house, the good-looking wife, and the nice watch, etc. But your story today is really eye-opening, and I'm really, really grateful that you you agreed to come on. So now you're out of Akamai, and you have a fund. You put up your own money, and I
put up my own money, and we've done okay. I mean, at the end of the day, if I look back, and I would have put all my money into the S&P 500, would I be ahead? Maybe a little bit ahead, because I've had the value of made money at a young age, and the value of compounding is absolutely huge. And we talk about my story, and the key to my story is something called extreme. The key to my story is something called extreme preparation. Think about this, Ross.
I love the shirt.
Think about this. From kindergarten through college, we invest 25,000 hours of studying. And over 18 years, from kindergarten through college, we invest over 25,000 hours of studying. And yet, on average, people only prepare 15 to 30 minutes for a job interview that can largely determine how they live. It's the craziest thing in the world. If somebody is preparing for an interview for an hour, you're going to crush them if you prepare 5 hours for same interview. So I tell people, you come in for a job interview, I'll prepare everybody else. Show them you've done the research. Research, study, plan. Get it right. Practice, and then persist. You got to follow up with people, because persisting after an interview is often the most important thing that you can do, and it's something that most people get wrong.
You're an absolute beast. What's life like now, Randy? What's your life like now?
My passion is coaching people. So I've been mentoring and coaching people over the last 25 years. Now I've built a successful coaching business. I coach executives, founders, athletes, doctors, lawyers, founders, entrepreneurs. And I've made a lot of people uber successful over the years. It's one of the most, and I've helped people achieve their dreams. They come to me, they don't have a plan, they're successful, they want more for their future, and I'm just passionate about it. I love it. It's expensive. If you're not making $300,000 or $400,000 a year and you have a company and it's not doing more than $5 million, your company has to be doing more than $5 million a year, because my coaching is very expensive. But think about the return on investment. One of my clients was a lawyer. One of my clients was a pediatric dentist in Grand Rapids, Michigan, making $500,000 a year and had no savings. He's filmed an ad for me that says, because of my direct coaching, his net worth went from $0 to $10 million the first year, and today, 4 years later, it's worth $50 million. And when I have clients and success like that, and his family is set, and he just bought this 23,000 square foot house, nothing makes me happier than the ability through coaching to change people's lives.
I like to use the expression, move the needle. You move the needle, right? You have shared with us today a core philosophy, but I'm sure that your coaching is tailored directly to these specific people that have earned their way to be able to hire you for coaching, masterminding. That's a word they use today. That's when I was growing up. Yeah. Mastermind was a criminal thing, but today it's like it's a marketing thing. But so today life? You wake up in the morning. I mean, what's your average day like?
Yeah, I wake up in the morning I wake up typically 5:30, 6 o'clock, come downstairs, read the journal, Wall Street Journal every day, help kids make breakfast, drive them to school. Sometimes my wife drives them. Sometimes I drive them. I get to the office and I work the whole day. I come home for dinner every single night, family first, and eat dinner, put the kids to bed with my wife, sometimes solo, sometimes she'll do it solo, read books to them, and then sometimes go to my office, do an hour or two of work. I'll work Saturdays and Sundays, so I've really cut back on the hours, focus on the family, and then go to bed. I love TV and I love reading books, and I'm writing a book right now called Extreme Preparation. It's teaching people how to do exactly what I did, how to prepare, make a plan, how to study, how to prepare, and how to persist. And everyone says, oh, what you did is so complicated. It's so easy. So my book, which is also called Extreme Preparation, should be out by September or October 2026. I hope everyone goes out and buys it. I promise you it will be life-changing.
I believe you. Trust me. I'm all pumped up from just listening to your story. I'm so excited to take on life again. Tell us about this podcast. You started a podcast. You have some of the most successful people in the world on this podcast.
Yeah, one of my interns around 8 years ago now says, so I had an intern program that was a teaching internship where I invited a lot of my friends to come in, CEOs, investment banks, founders, famous people, professional athletes, and I would spend an hour to 90 minutes a day teaching the interns about real life, things they don't teach you in college. And one of the interns said to me, hey, you should start a podcast. These are life-changing lessons. I said to him, no one listens to podcasts. I would never listen to a podcast in my life. 4.5 years ago, I woke up one day and said, I'm going to start a podcast. I'd never listened to a podcast. I've never listened to another podcast. And I said, all right, who do I want as my first guest? I want to do it my own way. So I went to somebody, a mentor and a friend named Sam Zell, one of the most successful business people in the world. He's a friend and a mentor. I never asked for anything. And I called him up. I was all nervous. I said, hey, Sam, I'm starting a podcast. I'd love you to be my first guest. In a millisecond, he said, I'd be honored to. So that's how I built it. And originally, I went to people that I knew, successful people. Sharon Stone was my second guest. Cliff Kingsbury, an amazing football coach, was my third guest. Brad Keywell, one of the most successful entrepreneurs.
Cliff Kingsbury was on TV last night.
What's that?
He was on TV last night, Monday Night Football.
Yeah. Cliff is the best. And I just started building it one by one. And eventually, my goal when I started my podcast, my number one guest was Tony Robbins.
Amazing.
And
he's the GOAT. He's actually the GOAT.
Tony's the GOAT. I read his book, Unlimited Power, when I was a freshman in college, and it really changed my life to think about, how you can be successful with no experience, just with the right mindset and the right preparation. And so around 8 months ago, someone introduced me to Tony. I mean, everyone said, oh, I know Tony, I'll make the introduction, but come to my mastermind, spend $25,000. Okay, well, that's not a real meeting. That's me paying to meet someone and shake their hand. But Doug Evans, amazing guy, good friend, says, I do know Tony, and I'm going to leave a message that night. That night, I got a message from Tony Robbins. I thought, oh my God, Tony Robbins left me a message. He said, I heard great things about you. I'd love you to be on my show. Tony invited me to his house right after the Palisades fires. It was during we were evacuated. I flew down to Palm Beach, did it in his house, thrill of a lifetime. I love Tony, the best. but I've had some of the most successful people in the world on my show. And every time you get a new guest, it really bumps the downloads and it gives you more and more credibility. So I had Mike Tyson, and I've had Gary Vee, I had Tony, I've had Dana White, I've had people from all walks of life, and I'm getting great guests. I'm very, very excited. Paris Hilton's coming on my show. John Paul DeJoria of Patron is coming on the show. Todd Graves, founder of Raising Cane's, coming on the show.
I love it.
Dwayne
What's
Wade's
it called?
Come
What's your
show.
podcast called? How do we find it?
Podcast is called In Search of Excellence. And
On
you can
YouTube?
find it on any of the. You can find it on Spotify, Apple,
YouTube,
every platform.
YouTube, Spotify,
yes,
everywhere.
you can watch it on YouTube. And YouTube, you can find me at Randall Kaplan. At Randall Kaplan is my Instagram as well.
2 L's.
2 L's.
Randall Kaplan. I always say my last name is Mandell. I have to say 2 S's, 2 L's. But 2 L's. People both, instinctively just stop with 1 L, and then we can't find you. So that's In Search of Excellence. I love it. That's I watched some of your episodes and I was really impressed.
Yeah.
You're really great.
We're doing really, really well, and it took a while to take off. On Apple, we reached as high as number 3 in the entrepreneurship category and as high as number 10 in the business category. And I'm very proud of that.
Wow.
On average, I prepare around 14 hours per show.
What?
And we release it every week. Every guest have said I'm the most every guest that I've ever had have said I'm the most prepared interviewer they've ever had. And once you start an interview with some of these most successful people who've been interviewed 1,000 times, and you started at this level, I started with an extreme preparation torpedo. EPT, because I want to blow them off their chair. And that should be the goal of every interview you have with anybody, every sales meeting. Your goal should be to be the most prepared person in the room and blow them off their chair. Because when you blow them off their chair, that means you've done something right.
I love it. And it's a great lesson for everybody to hear, and for myself included. I just love it. Present company included. I'm so impressed with you and all around. Now, let's tell the audience how old you are. I want to remind everybody.
I'm 57 years old.
Okay, and you're 57. You're
57 in a month.
You could have retired 25 years ago. I'm just saying, technically speaking, but you've got young children,
Yes.
2 daughters that look beautiful. And I just want to say to you, as an older guy talking to a younger guy, the most precious time in my life was when those drives to school, the drop-offs and the pickups, waiting online at the private school that doesn't have buses. And just
to all the parents in the world, one of the most successful things to all the parents in the world, one of the best things I've done as a parent is I take my kids, every kid, on a one-on-one trip every year. The twins, they go together, but that quality time with your kids, everyone's busy. You got to carve it out. You got to make it happen and make sure that nothing gets in the way. And those days are the most precious days of your life.
And I'm telling you, I'm a guy that had to go to prison at a 112-month federal prison sentence. And I want to tell you that good chance to really evaluate these things. Imagine a guy like you in a cage for 8 years. It's like, that's me. They did that to me.
Can't do it. I was able to do it.
I was a real disruptor. When you were a young lawyer looking for work, I was making tens of millions of dollars. But this is your time today. So what can we expect from Randy Kaplan? I mean, I'm so blown away with what you've already done and the things that you've accomplished, the things that you've walked away from. Your story, I note that in part of your story is it's embedded in your story, a pattern of being a part of, understanding, analyzing, and then moving forward. And you're not afraid of change. Some people say stay in the same job, even though it's uncomfortable, or the same marriage, or the same town where they grew up in, etc. You're a guy who has moved forward in every single element of your life. That's what I'm picking up as a guy, one guy talking to another. And I also sense that at each move forward was a big growth opportunity for you. Like you recognized you needed to grow, or you were uncomfortable, you wanted more, whatever the reasons were, they were different. But throughout the course of your story, you have chapters almost like, and then you move forward, right? We're going to a different set if we're making a movie out of your story. I'm actually producing a movie now. And so 5 years from now, Randy, what's happening with you?
Yeah, 5 years from now, Hope every person that wants to improve themselves has already read my book, Extreme Preparation. I want to give talks around the world. I want to coach people, growing the coaching business. If you're interested in some coaching, DM me on Instagram, and I'd love to hear from you. I just want to change lives. And 5 years from now, I'm going to be having my podcast. I'm going to be a professional coach. I'm going to continue, I should say, 5 years from now, I'm going to continue being a professional coach. I'm going to continue helping people achieve their dreams. I'm going to continue inspiring, motivate others. That's my goal. And I'm going to be an amazing father.
Yes, the best, the most.
To all of my kids, family first.
Family first, always. God first, family first. You know, it's really a beautiful story. It's been an amazing life, but yep. I see that you are still accepting challenges. That's just the kind of guy you are. It's the way you're made. That's what I get from you. You need challenges. You have an appetite still. Your appetite is not squashed. That's my feeling. This is an ongoing story. I feel like it's been a real privilege to get to know you today.
Likewise. I really appreciate you inviting me on your show. Congrats on all your success, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and meeting you in person one day.
One day, maybe I'll go to the mailbox and I'll get a letter from Randy Kaplan, and I'll be like, man, this is cool. I've arrived.
Thank you.
Really, thank you so much for your time today, bro. I appreciate you.
Special guy.
Thank you.
Thank you.